Good morning, school, and welcome to this, the first reflection section of the new year. A popular pub quiz question is, can you name the 7 wonders of the world? And we will have all heard of the 7 wonders of the world, but I wonder actually how many of them could you name, and are you aware of where they come from? So I thought I'd take a couple of minutes to have a look at this phenomenon. Now, the idea of 7 wonders of the world is possibly older than you may think. It actually goes back over 2,000 years. There'd been a lot of discussion about this. Herodotus, among others, discussed it, but in about 100 BC, a philosopher called Antipater of Sidon put together what he considered to be a list of mankind's greatest achievements. Now, it's worth noting, of course, that actually when we talk about wonders of the world, they were actually talking about the wonders of the known world. So really we're looking at a small area focused on Greece, the Middle East and North Africa. The first of our 7 wonders is the Great Pyramid at Giza. Possibly the world's most famous building. Now, this building is astonishingly old. In fact, there is a greater span of time between its construction and the birth of Jesus than there is from Jesus' birth and the present day. It's astonishingly old. It was built in about 2700 BC. It was commissioned by the pharaoh Khufu, and it was to be his tomb and a monument to his greatness. It is a staggering feat of engineering. It stood as the world's tallest building for about 4,000 years. And interestingly, what we see today is actually its inner structure. What you may not be aware of is that when it was originally built, it would have been clad in white limestone, so it would look very different to how it does today. The second entry on the 7 wonders of the world is possibly the most controversial, it being the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. Now, the reason these are controversial is because no one actually knows whether these things existed or not. If they did exist, no one knows where they were, and there's certainly no agreement of what they look like. They were built by King Nebuchadnezzar II about 2,500 years ago. The Babylonian Empire was extensive, and so no one knows where these gardens would have been. But we do have an idea of what they may have looked like. Across modern-day Iraq, there are a number of ancient ziggurats, or large temples. And many of these, such as the one pictured, which is the ziggurat of actually had a complex raised irrigation system. And archaeologists have been able to deduce that from this, that once throughout the Babylonian Empire, raised gardens were very much in use. And so it's certainly possible that the Hanging Gardens of Babylon were indeed real. The third wonder was the statue of Zeus at Olympia. This was apparently an ivory and gold statue that stood over 40 foot tall and was commissioned in about 435 BC and was built by Phidias, the greatest Greek sculptor. Now, actually no one knows what happened to the temple or the statue. However, a similar statue by the same sculptor remains. This is Phidias' statue of Athena, and from this we can perhaps suggest the size and grandeur of the statue of Zeus. Our fourth wonder of the world is the temple of Artemis at Ephesus. This dates back to about the 4th century BC and supposedly was the greatest temple in the world full of fine art and stood as a monument to Artemis's glory and power. However, despite its glory, the temple only stood for about 900 years. By the 5th century, the Romans had converted to Christianity, and a crackdown on paganism saw the temple destroyed. Our 5th wonder dates back to about 350 BC. It is the Mausoleum at Halicarnassus. It was a tomb built in honour of Mausolus, the ruler of a region, and the tomb was so ornate and so grand. His name is where we get the word mausoleum, meaning tomb or shrine, from. He was the ruler of a region called Caria, which is now part of Bodrum in Turkey. And although the mausoleum was destroyed by a series of earthquakes, a number of sculptures and friezes from the shrine still exist to this day and possibly pay tribute and testament to the wealth and money spent upon it. The sixth wonder is the shortest lived. It was the Colossus of Rhodes. This was a gigantic sculpture, literally a colossal sculpture that legend has it stood bestride the harbour at Rhodes, and it was built apparently from the melted down swords and shields of their enemies to celebrate a victory. Apparently it only stood for about 50 years when it collapsed after an earthquake, but supposedly ships would be able to sail underneath or through the legs of this statue, so great it was. And finally we have the Lighthouse at Alexandria. Now we know that this existed. Alexandria was the greatest city in the world at the time. It stood over 100 foot tall, although we have no idea actually how the lantern itself worked. Despite the glory of Alexandria and its library and its architecture, eventually, like many others of these wonders, it fell into disrepair and collapsed. And so that's the 7 wonders of the ancient world. Perhaps the most telling thing about them is the fact that there is only one of them still standing, and possibly that speaks volumes about a sense of hubris or pride, a belief that our monuments will last forever, because of course we see that they do not. There are, however, UNESCO have nominated 7 wonders of the modern world which are still very much standing, and that includes Machu Picchu, Petra in Jordan, the Taj Mahal, Christ the Redeemer, Great Wall of China, the Colosseum. And so possibly if you get the opportunity to go and travel and see some of these, try and do so before they too fall victims to the vagaries of time. Okay, thanks ever so much, school.